like the Colts on the money line. All right. All right, welcome in to the Michigan football post-game live show on the Maize and Blue Review. I'm Dennis Fithian, joined by former Wolverine Jim Scarcelli. I did like the Colts on the money line last week. That's where that cut came from. But today, Michigan, we're here to talk about Michigan taking down Iowa with their first road game. They win it 27-14. It's great to be with you. Scar, how are you?
Hey, I'm just fired up, man. That was a great job by our coaches, great job by our players. It was just a program win, Denny. I mean, to go in there and defend Iowa, our offense, what we do, we run spread, we can run the physical stuff. It helps our defense when you got to defend the Iowas and then you got to defend the Ohio States. It was just a philosophical win from what we do offensively and what we do as a program. And it really paid off helping our defense today.
Yeah, if you would have told me that the final score of it in 27-14, I think, me and anybody else that, follows Michigan, likes Michigan, is a Michigan fan would say, okay, I'll take it. I think Michigan came out and played so well on the first drive, and then here they were, shutting them out at the half, 13-0. They were making it look, it wasn't perfect along the way, but, they get up 20-0 and it looks like, okay, this thing is over. And then it wasn't, Michigan, they had some 3-and-outs and Iowa started moving the ball a little bit, and they made it a little bit scary there at some times in the second half before when they really needed it. And the biggest thing, Scar, for me is that, and I'm watching, I'm looking on the Maize and Blue Review during the game on the Den, which is the posting board. There's a live thread. People every play, are saying, I like this, I don't like that, I don't like this. Well, the narrative in that second half was that, no pass rush and, how are they letting this happen? But when they needed it. They had Mike Morris 2 times, and then they had Yabi Oki 2 times, 4 times being able to get to the quarterback and put him on the ground. That was one of the, pretty clear, series and 4 plays of the game.
Yeah, we got some pressure late when we knew they were going to pass. We had trouble getting pressure when it was, when they could do either or. But yeah, that first drive, I was watching our coaches are smart, man. I'm telling you, last week we came out and said, okay, we want to be physical. Let's see if we can be physical and bully Maryland. That was the plan. And it didn't work as good as we thought, but it worked a little bit. This week, the philosophy was totally different. Let's take these. They think we could spread out. Let's spread out Iowa's defense. They probably didn't believe they had as much athleticism like a Maryland or some of these other people. Iowa's strength defensively is stopping the interior run, playing with the 2 tight ends and defending that stuff. Our coaches said, we're going to spread you out. We're going to exploit what we believe to be your weaknesses. So we spread them out. And we ran the football from the spread formations, and we threw some easy high percentage passes. I was just loving it. I was loving what I was seeing offensively because it was smart coaches saying, okay, we're gonna exploit you and utilize our personnel and spread the field. And it was just great stuff, man.
Jim Scarcelli, Dennis Fithian, Maize and Blue Review, postgame live. Scarcelli's got a million things that he wants to say. We will put your feedback in real time up on the screen. If you have a question, if you have a comment, if you are listening on Twitter Spaces and you want to get in and join us, you can, like Garrett, who has said he wanted to jump on and talk about this one. And Garrett, you are with us here. I had muted you for a second. Now I'm trying to unmute you. Let's see if I can get you. You're there, right?
I think I got it, Dennis. Did I get it?
Yeah, you're there. What's going on, Garrett? What'd you think of the game today? Michigan wins it.
Hey, you know what? I was just happy we had a good noon slate of college games, and I mean, that Ole Miss Kentucky finish was awesome too. But no, I'll say this much: I watched the first half. I watched probably the first 3 quarters of the game, and I'm not going to lie to you. I kind of went away from the game after about the 3rd quarter. It wasn't that I necessarily thought that Michigan was doing its job. It was, but it just, Iowa just plays such boring football, and maybe I shouldn't say boring. I mean, physical football is physical football. People like that. I'm not necessarily one of those kind of guys where I like physical football. Maybe I like a little more of the spread where you spread the field, you do a lot of those dink and dunk plays, you can get the RPO going, get the downfield threat. I think it was good. Now, I'll say this about JJ. I thought he was actually fine today. Now, sure, he did whiz some balls in there, and sure, there were a couple decisions there that he could have maybe had back, but I don't think he was at a point where he cost this team the game. And I think that Iowa did make the adjustments, and you saw why they had a good defense coming into this year. So, that's why in the second half, maybe it did look like they struggled a little bit. But I'm not worrying about next week and this offense doing that. I think they're going to be just fine. And you did what you had to do against a very bad Iowa team that, still needs to figure out a lot on offense. And I know people are going to say they scored 14 points, but, they couldn't really convert in big time situations as well. And I just thought, Dennis, overall, it was a solid game. You went to Iowa City and you erased the demon. So by me, you just go to the next one.
Good overall call, and I'm going to agree with you, and I'm going to ask Scar about JJ in just 1 second. But I wanted to ask you, I did not see the end of that Kentucky Ole Miss game, but the Wildcats had one of the touchdowns wiped off. Was that a good call, controversial call? Great game, but how did you see that last touchdown?
You know what? I thought it was a fair game. I mean, obviously, a road team going into a place like Vaught Hemingway, going down to the Grove, it's kind of tough, right? When you go into a place like that, especially with what Mark Stoops had, going 0-10 against the SEC West in the road, it's tough to go into an environment like that and expect to get that call. But I thought it was the right play and the right call. I mean, I know Kentucky fans might say something about it, but you got to play in spite of the refs. And you had to get a little more production on the Levis today. And I think Rodriguez did his job for them. So I thought it was the right call, Dennis. And, at least that'll give the talk radio pundits something to talk about over here for the weekend and heading in during the week.
Well, we always need things to talk about. Garrett, we appreciate your thoughts and jumping right in there and telling us what you thought of the games today. Take care, man. And
thanks.
Yeah, there's Garrett. That's how it's done. You want to get in there, just raise your hand, whatever. We'll turn your mic on. You can talk with Jim Scarcelli, the former Wolverine. You can talk about this one. What about JJ McCarthy? Scar, he goes 18 of 24, 155, one touchdown, no interceptions. How do you think Jim Harbaugh will grade his sophomore quarterback's first road start?
I thought JJ was real good. He just had the one little time he got, he got some pressure and he threw it away, and we ended up having a punt from our end zone there. But JJ, the biggest play of the game for me for JJ was why he's a 5-star kid was when he broke contain and threw that touchdown, that second touchdown. That's the 5-star. That's how we win championships. That's why he's a first-round draft choice with those kind of plays. He's as good as the Ohio State kid, the Alabama kid with those kind of plays with his legs and throwing accurate passes. The kid's going to do nothing but get better. He did some good things today, broke contain. He scrambled a little bit, threw some accurate passes. We ran the option with them. We did some good things, man. So I would say JJ was fine, good enough to win a football game.
Yeah, I think that, last week in the first half, I thought there was a little bit of an awareness issue, and I thought the game maybe was going a little bit too fast for him, but I didn't think that at all today. I mean, he came out calm, composed, cool, took the team right down, was handling it, all the things that you would want. Now, you start nitpicking. You mentioned down there the goal line, taking care of the ball. Sure, that's going to be one thing. And he did miss a deep pass to Roman Wilson. If you want to be a great quarterback, that's the thing here. Like Michigan's, you're not dealing with, somebody that you're looking at saying, hey, he's just part of the 11. And, you're looking at him as a difference maker. You just talked about it, Scar. It doesn't matter who you're looking at across the country. It looks like he's got that kind of skill set, whether he's going to run it, whether he's going to throw it. And he's got the goods around him as well. So you are going to say, hey, if he can start putting the ball on his receivers when they're deep and take care of just some fine tuning things, that's going to be obviously great news for Michigan, great news for JJ McCarthy. And, the Wolverines will be a factor in the Big Ten, and they'll be a factor nationally as well. So he's on track to do all of that.
Yeah, hey, he's surrounded with the right system, good offensive linemen. Our tight ends were outstanding again, blocking, receivers, running backs. He's surrounded by a lot of good stuff. And if Iowa has JJ and we got Spencer, this is a whole different game. It's a whole different game. So I'm glad we had the right guy. And again, he's surrounded with a lot of good stuff. Good play calling today, good coaches and great defense and. We'll get all this. Everything was good. Special teams were sound.
Yeah, I wonder, if you go to the second half and if there was a point. Look, I think Michigan, if I was grading them overall, I'd give them a pretty solid B. You might want to give them an A-, but, I'll just out of hand here, give them a B. I really liked how they played in the first half. And when you get up, you get up 20-0, you are going to call plays a little bit differently offensively. I could see where you might say, let's see if you can grind it out, and let's, start taking some time off the clock. There's no need to put the ball up and think about, we got to beat them by 40 or something like that. And they had three and outs there. I wonder, how you looked at that second half where if a call, the Michigan got a lot of good calls in this game when the refs came out. If I was a Hawkeye fan, I'd be complaining right now on the way back to the tailgate about, what are these refs? We better check their IDs. They're all from Michigan. But how did you look at that where it got kind of tight, maybe tighter, too close for comfort for some people that were watching this game? How did you see that aspect of it?
Yeah, Danny, the worst call for Michigan all day, I think, that we made was the 3rd and 1 call, when after they had scored, and that was the worst call. They had 8 guys with 3-point stances in the game and 1 linebacker. And there's no way and that was a goal line defense on the 35-yard line. They were in a straight up 4th and inches goal line defense. And, that's when you have to have the courage. That's what I like about Jeff Brom. I always talk about Jeff Brom. That's when we needed to come out, I think, in a different formation, or that's when we need the RPO with JJ using his legs. You need to get out of that rut because Phil Parker was just saying, hey, I know what you're going to do, Harbaugh. And we did exactly what he thought we were going to do, and they just stuffed us. So that was the worst call for me. Very frustrating. But other than that, Denny, I just think we just called a really a good game, man. We did a lot of good things. There were some plays we hadn't run, I hadn't seen before. We ran the power reverse. We ran earlier in the year. That was our first score. So some of those plays we had worked on. Some of those plays that put defenses in conflict. And I thought we ran our power good. I thought offensively, Denny, we moved their front. When we really needed to move them, we moved that front better than we have an Iowa defense in a long time to run, just run our inside stuff. And that was encouraging to see, our offensive line do that. But running back.
Another thing encouraging, Scar, is to jump in on offense as I'm listening to you talk, and I'm thinking about JJ McCarthy there. The return of Donovan Edwards. There was a play that Donovan Edwards ran in the first half, and you can say, man, that's a super talented kid. I think he went for like 6-7 yards just up the middle, and you're like, that's a weapon out there on the field. And you mentioned when JJ rolled out to the right, that was Donovan Edwards that found himself in the back of the end zone for a touchdown. So you're bringing in Blake Corum. We haven't talked about Blake Corum. He goes over 100 yards. He's been the rock here. He's been Michigan's best offensive player. It's not just hand it off to number 2 and then see what happens. McCarthy was pelting Schoonmaker left and right. I mean, they seemed like they could go to that anytime they wanted. I love the deep shot to Roman Wilson. I really I thought his best throw, I know you said the best play was that rollout. When he rolls out to the right, he's dangerous, but he found Andrell Anthony down, I don't know, was that the left seam? I don't even know what kind of throw. He looked like he just kind of threw it up to him, and Anthony just went up and high pointed it and got it. But I watched that, and I thought, that's a connection. That's a lot of talent out there. That's what we had talked about in the offseason. Like, you got Ronnie Bell, you've got Roman Wilson, twitchy athlete. You've got these 2 running backs that are both, bring a lot to the table. And, you saw a lot of that today for Michigan out there against Iowa. And, sure, like I'm sure Cornelius Johnson saying, hey, I want some more love. And, that's going to be part of it. But he spread it around a lot. And a lot of guys look pretty dangerous for U of M today in Iowa City.
Yeah, the more diverse you are, the more receivers you utilize, it's tougher on the defense. They can't just say, hey, number 6 is in the game. They don't throw it to him, or they only throw it to this tight end. They don't throw it to let's make them defend everybody. But you're right. It was great to see Donovan Edwards in there. He makes people miss. We secured the football. That's always the number one thing. Secured the football. There were 0 turnovers. You go on the road. We had 0 turnovers for Michigan. Michael Hart, great job with that. But our tight ends, this Shoemaker kid, this kid is I hope the Lions draft this kid. This kid is good. He can block. He can catch. We ran behind him many times. Many different types of blocking he's asked to do, and I was really encouraged with that. But yeah, Danny, offensive line, we had movement when we really needed movement. That was a great thing. That makes it so much easier for an offensive play caller to at least get some type of movement at the line of scrimmage.
Let me ask you a question late in this game. I have to admit that I thought it was over. I was here in the studio. I come up and put a couple screens on and check some other things out. And I look and I see Michigan, the Iowa gets a late score, and then I see Michigan gets a late score. Should Blake Corum, as he was going into the end zone, should he have dove down and not scored there at the end for U of M, because the idea was then Iowa could get the ball back, or was there not enough time?
Denny, we talked about my other pick of the week was under 42.
Okay.
And they were letting them score there. So now I'm sweating. I got a couple dollars on that under deal there.
Oh, okay.
So they let them score. I mean, I don't think that I rewinded it a couple times. I don't think that linebacker was that bad. And I believe they let Michigan score there even though there wasn't much time, but I think that's what they were doing there. But I tell you, one of the best plays I saw from Corum today, we ran a perimeter sweep type of play, and it would have been a negative play if he would have tried to bounce it out. And he's so smart, he realized he wasn't going to get outside the defense, and he just cut it up inside and say, I'll take 2 yards. I don't know if you remember that play. That's a smart kid. That's a smart play. Instead of making it a 5-yard loss, he went inside and took 2 yards, and that's coaching, and that's a smart kid.
Yeah, they replayed some of that. There was one, I think it was to go for the first down. I think it's a different one that you were talking about. They talk about the back getting skinny. It looked like he could see the offensive line in front of him. There wasn't a lot there. He could have tried to plow ahead to get the first down, but he jumped to the right and he got skinny and he got through that hole and he got a couple yards and he got the first down. He is pretty good at that. He is one of the better backs in the country. I want to go over to the defensive side.
Let me mention two more things on offense.
All right.
We only had 1 or 2 negative plays. You know how big that is for an offense to not have negative plays? Just 1 or 2 negative plays. And we only had 1 offensive penalty, a holding penalty out there. So, really, really a good job we wanted Iowa is good in a phone booth. We wanted to make them play in a parking lot today. And that's on coaches. Our coaches said, let's play in a parking lot. Other teams we want to play in a phone booth, and Michigan has the ability to do both. But go ahead on the defense, Denny.
Yeah, well, some individual players. We already talked about the one series where you had Yabi Oki coming up on 3rd down and on 4th down, harassing Petrus and getting him to the ground. Then you had Mike Morris ×2 on that drive. That was huge, and that's going to be one everybody's talking about. But a real tone setter to start the second half out was a guy that you have put a few plays in, and you continue to talk about him when you join us on Thursday for our podcast at 1:00, the Good Afternoon Michigan Football live show. You keep talking about the true freshman Mason Graham, and you can see why they're playing him. This is prior to today. You say, hey, I see why they're playing him. Remember you were showing that one about the pad level and how, you just get in there, and he's, as a true freshman, to have that kind of strength, but the way that he set up, that's a pretty good offensive lineman that Iowa had there that he beat, and he got in there. He set the tone on that first series that Iowa had offensively and got the sack.
Yeah, that was good because we were having trouble getting pressure. Listen, a lot of guys defensively did some really good things, but when you play Iowa, you've got to defend their zone, and it's really tough on our 3 techniques and our 1 techniques. And I thought Mozzie was pretty average today, to be honest, but I thought Jenkins was outstanding playing the double team reach stuff that they do. I thought Jenkins was really good. We used a lot of 3 down. We put a lot of 3 edge players in Denny at times to help us get a little pressure, take out a defensive lineman, take out a linebacker. But we were able to get some pressure with that. And, this is the coaching guessing game. Denny, last year, Iowa booted. They loved their boot pass off the zone. Last year, they did a lot of boot to the field. And our scheme adjusted to that. We kept bringing pressure to the field. This year, Iowa they're not dumb coaches. They booted to the sideline. They booted to the sideline away from our pressure. So that was giving us some trouble. We're wondering why they were having so much success on their boot pass. And I'm like, yeah, we're doing the opposite of what they're doing. They adjusted. They're smart coaches. They saw what we did last year, and then it becomes a guessing game. But the pressure came late. But what else do I got here? 4-man pressure. Yeah, to win the game. You have 4-man pressure to win the game, Denny. We didn't need to bring 5 to get pressure against them. We had did some good things there, being able to get pressure with 4 guys.
Let me get some feedback for you. If you're listening on Twitter Spaces and you want to either leave a tweet, I will read that, and we will get your opinion or your question via Twitter. If you're listening on Twitter and you want to talk, just go ahead and push your mic and say that you want to get on, and we'll put you right on. That's the way it's done. A feedback coming in from Logan, who says the pass rush was excellent to close out the game. The O-line played well. JJ's pocket awareness seemed improved. Overall, a great step in the direction we want to be in. Here's a specific question for you, Scar, from Vince. He says, do you think we were holding those pass rush schemes for a big moment, or were those things that we have done, those pass rush were huge to really seal this one in the end?
No, we've been working on all that stuff. We've been working on it every game. I've been watching it, and we kept repping it. It looked good against UConn. It looked good against Hawaii. Because I was noticing we were running a lot of. They would bring out a defensive lineman, put in a third edge player, another athletic player, and work all those different stunts. And all those different stunts, they work. And it helped us defend a screen one time. We had a stunt on. And Upshaw came over and made the play just because we got lucky with the right stunt. But we have been working on those stunts. Our players continue to work on their general technique. We did get some pressure just playing vanilla, rushing outside, rushing your gap technique at the end. Upshaw Morris beat his kid a couple times at the end, just vanilla, beating his guy. But we've been working on those stunts, and it's all good.
Yeah, I can remember one looping around. I don't know if it was a stunt or a twist or anything, but Jalen Harrell got in there. You saw him coming around and getting into the backfield, and that was pretty good. And Leo saying he didn't see Braden McGregor in there. You look, go through, you watch the tape. I don't know. Like, I'm not – we can look at the stats if he didn't come up with one. But, overall, being able to get to the quarterback, there was some questions there in the second half where they started – there wasn't a prevent, but Iowa was desperate. They started making some plays. And I know people were a little bit upset about that. But, overall, when you get up 20-0, whether you think it's human nature, it's almost like last week. Like last week, Michigan won, and then you start pointing some things out, and people are like, whoa, don't start, let's not start criticizing them. But, you just start picking some things apart. You get up 20-0, you say, okay, letting them back in, what happened there? And those are the kind of things you do. Michigan looked like offensively they took their foot off the gas a little bit. They wanted to play it more conservative. When you're up 20-0, it's like, well, you've got a different game plan than if you're sitting there in a 10-10 game. You're going to play it a little bit differently, and you're going to play it conservatively. And that's, I think, like you were talking about, the one run into a loaded box was not something that seemed like it was had really a chance to work.
They got back, Denny, when when JJ had the mistake in our end, we had to punt so that gave, now we're punting with poor field position, and then we get a crummy punt, and then we get, but we had I don't know what the heck we were doing on that 3rd and 22. It looked like Sandistro got kind of mixed up somehow. And we gave them a cheap one there, and then we didn't get lined up right on their first touchdown. They had 4 guys where we had 3, and we had 4 where they had 3, and they obviously ran to where we weren't lined up properly. So yeah, we were not lined up properly on their first score, and then we gave them that big long pass conversion on what I believe to be some type of a communication error somewhere, because that wasn't a sound coverage.
It's the Maize and Blue review of Michigan Postgame Live. We're putting your feedback up on the screen, taking your questions and comments there. We're taking your audio calls via Twitter. If you want to put a tweet out there we'll answer those as well. Scar, we're not going to have the audio for this play, so we'll talk through it. This is one of the bigger plays. I thought the biggest play of the game for Michigan. So you'll cue it up and you can talk during this play. This is in the second half. Michigan is already leading 13-0, and they get it down here for a third down. And I think we have it all set up there. There we are. It's a 3rd and 8, 13-0. Got the clock running in the third quarter. This is where JJ rolls over to his right and then finds Donovan Edwards, who looks like originally he's going to be right around the 5-yard line, but then he cuts it up to the back of the end zone. Let's see.
Yeah, that's the 5-star kid we recruited right there. The ability to break contain. Remember I told you, all as a defensive end edge player, the first thing I need to know is how fast is the quarterback, because that changes everything. And that right there is what I'm talking about. The ability to run, to make plays. He just outran that edge player. He broke contain, and that's the whole deal right there, man. This edge player takes a poor angle. He doesn't know how fast JJ is. That's just terrible right there. You got to know the talent. You got to know the enemy. That kid didn't respect JJ's talent, his speed, and JJ makes him play. Edwards makes a nice catch, and that's a 5-star player right there. That's a great play.
Yeah, and I'm watching that one, and there's a lot of things that you say, like, JJ, needs to protect the ball better. That was something last week, but you could see it on the first drive, and you could see it right there. When he has the ball and he snaps it, he can move to his right. It almost looks effortless for him. But, I mean, that guy, he did have a bad angle, but it's not like he sweated him at all. Like, he knew that he could just move right around him. He took that right up into the line of scrimmage. I mean, it was close. I mean, I thought he was going to run it there, but he ends up just throwing it and then casually being able to find Donovan Edwards back there. I mean, that was money. That is, when you're saying, 5-star, and that also just adds the element of having Donovan Edwards in there when, you have Blake Corum, and, Blake Corum is one of the better backs in the country. And then you're looking at Donovan Edwards and you're saying, this guy, it's a great 1-2 punch that they have.
Yeah, that was just a good, smart play by Edwards. He realized what was happening, that you got to make an adjustment, and they work on that stuff, man. But that's there's some things you just can't coach, and that's the ability for JJ to get out of the pocket there. Can't coach that.
29 carries, 133 yards, and a touchdown from Blake Corum, who had a long of 20. Scott says Corum has an amazing 5 to 10 yard burst. He gets defenders leaning and then blows by him. No human being can stop that wiggle and burst. No human being, says Scott.
Yeah, Corum reminds me a lot of a guy I played with, Jamie Morris. He's just low to the ground and he's compact. You don't really see him all the time, and he has natural leverage for pass protection. So he's always going to have, be able to get under a big defensive end, with good leverage. And but yeah, he can shift on a dime and make the jump cuts, but really, really a smart player, and always, and securing the darn football. That was great by all of our skill players today.
You mentioned the punt that Michigan didn't have, but overall in special teams, when you look at that, Booty had a couple field goals. AJ Henning, we wondered exactly where he was at health-wise after last week, but he looked like he did a pretty good job back there, fielding punts, when to catch them, getting a couple extra yards, taking away that hidden yardage. So overall, looked like a pretty good job there, with the exception of that one punt where they were pinned back there.
Yeah, Jay Harbaugh again, man. Our kickoff coverage was great. They didn't. Nothing broke loose there. Our punt, we dropped. His first punt we dropped in there on the 10-yard line, which was great. Then he had the kind of the shank when we really needed it out of our end zone. But there was great coverage at the end. When we did have three it out at the end there, where we had to punt from our end, we had great coverage, and he had a good long punt. That was crucial at one of our last possessions. But a punt return, like you say, Henning was outstanding. Just catching the punt and saving field position. He caught the ball one time on the 5-yard line and got us a 12-yard return. That's huge. To start on the 15 is a lot different than starting on the 8-yard line or something like that. And then Moody again making his field goals. So, Yeah, our special teams have been sound, man. You know, Danny, I got to just say something. Old Gus talked about, Iowa defense, the second best defense in the Big Ten. I don't know that this is the second best defense in the Big Ten. The second best defense is either in Columbus or it's at Penn State, because the best defense in the Big Ten is in Ann Arbor. So those other guys, the other two, I think Ohio State and Penn State are the second. They're battling it out for the second best defense.
Yeah, it's one thing, and I know Gus Johnson, he had he gets all the press notes, and he started talking about this team, the number one offensive team, number one defensive team, all this kind of stuff. When you look at who Iowa played, you look at who Michigan played for the first 3 games, like, let's wait a couple weeks before you start. It's fine to look at it, but when you're talking about Iowa being the best team in the country defensively and Michigan being the best offensive team, neither team, they got to play a couple more games against somebody before. And I know not all of the teams have played, a Power 5 school or 2 Power 5 schools, but it gets a little bit misleading. I'm just looking at the numbers here for Michigan offensively, and you mentioned it earlier about you don't want to put guys out there, and if you're always going to one guy, then you can't cheat or you can't shade or do anything else. But you look at the receptions. You had Schoonmaker with 4, Roman Wilson with 4, Donovan Edwards with 4, Ronnie Bell had 2, Corum had 2, and then you had Anthony with a big 29-yarder, and then Cornelius Johnson with 1. Sure, you'd like to get the ball a little bit more to Cornelius Johnson. That's pretty good distribution on 18 receptions, though, getting it out there, getting it to your backs, and spreading it around with these wide receivers.
Yeah, it's just like defending basketball, Danny, and that's kind of what we did, what we wanted to do against this team. We wanted to spread the floor because we know we can exploit them. And when everybody can make a 3-point shot, it's tougher to defend, and we continue to do that. And Coach Harbaugh knows that. Let's make him defend every eligible receiver every single down. Let's make him defend every single gap on the line of scrimmage every single down. We can run it to either tackle, either tight end, left, right, and we know that. So, those are. I like seeing the option. We ran the option today. It was not successful because I don't like the way we blocked it. JJ pitched the ball there, but I like seeing that stuff in because those are things that they have to work on. I tell you another thing that was smart today, Dan. I don't know if you noticed it. There was one time Iowa made a substitution. They made a substitution late with only about 15 seconds on the play clock. So now Michigan had a chance to substitute. And so we said, we're going to substitute. And here come Graham running off the field. I mean, it was so obvious he was not in a hurry to get off the field. Big number 55. So now Iowa had to call a timeout because there was no time on the play clock. So that was a positive note for the Michigan coaches that I didn't hear anybody in the press box talk about, but I saw it.
Get those questions in. We'll put them up on the screen. If you want to talk, go ahead and turn your mic on. If you're listening on Twitter Spaces from the Maize and Blue Review, it's Brock Hillig who is with us on the Maize and Blue Review Michigan Postgame Live. Brock, it's always great to hear from you. What did you think of the game today?
Yeah, first of all, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's always a pleasure coming on and talking about the game. But I don't think people realize how big of a win this is for Michigan. Everyone knows about all the top 5 drama that's happened at Kinnick over the recent years. And for Michigan to go in there and win pretty comfortably, obviously there was a little moment there in the fourth quarter where things were kind of slipping. But for most of the game, I'd assume many Michigan fans were comfortable, and for them to go in there and handle business, it was good to see. So, yeah, lots of good things from the team today.
I'm with you on the big picture, and I thought after seeing Iowa really struggle on offense all year long, I was with Scarcelli. We talked about it in the offseason. I think many people were right there with us that after Ohio State that this was going to be Michigan's toughest game. But then we saw Penn State go down to Auburn, and we saw the difficulties that Iowa was having offensively. But still, being able to go on the road and win at Iowa. You go on the road regardless in the conference, but this one. And then when you think about Indiana and Rutgers, I mean, this was it could be dangerous. I mean, like we've watched it a million times, and in 2016 wasn't all that long ago, and people kept reminding everybody else all week long that, look, Michigan was 8-9-0, number 2 team in the country then, and Iowa already had 4 losses, and, Iowa served them up a big fat L that particular night. But this one was during the day, and I don't think, there was a little time to it got a little hairy there, Brock, but it was also Michigan built themselves up a nice cushion. I mean, there was 5 minutes to go in the third quarter. They're up 20-0. Like, you're feeling pretty good.
Yeah, and I think that first drive to start off the game ended up to be probably really big because you get off to a quick 7-0 lead, and if it was let's say they didn't score on the first drive of the game, and then you're sitting there at 13-7, and a touchdown gives Iowa the lead right in the fourth quarter there. So that first drive of the game really got Michigan going, and then obviously you don't like to see Zach Zinter kind of step on JJ's foot there as he's coming out from under center, but that kind of killed the second drive, and then they had to punt. But
what else it did? You know what else it did, Brock? It turned off that crowd. I mean, that crowd was at a fever pitch out of the gate, and Michigan comes out there, puts together that drive like that, and you could hear a pin drop at Kinnick. That wasn't the idea. If you're there and you're a Hawkeye fan that had been waiting around for that game all week long.
Exactly.
That was huge.
Yeah. I'll tell you something that was so impressive, because I remember playing in that loud stadium. I guarantee you that game started with the kind of volume I remember. Danny, we had that first drive. We took it right down. No penalties, man. We're communicating. Nothing. No penalties. They in our offensive coaches, they must have done worked on it. And that is a great job by our offensive coaches to really put a handle on that noise and make it a non-factor in that game.
Good stuff. Brock, what else? Give me another observation.
Well, I was looking through Twitter and on our message boards there during the end of the game as it was kind of winding down, and I was seeing a lot of people kind of hating on Jesse Minter and the defense. And I mean, they gave up 14 points. One of them was with 8 seconds left, right? So I don't really understand where the hate's coming from, because you hold Iowa, a team that doesn't really have a great offense, to really 7 points. I mean, if Michigan was actually trying there late in the fourth quarter, I'm sure Iowa wouldn't have scored. But it's a garbage time touchdown. It doesn't matter. But Jesse Minter and the defense had the shutout in the first half going, and obviously Iowa kind of caught fire there in the fourth quarter. But the defense, I think the defense is good. Like you guys were just saying, I think the best defense in the Big Ten resides in Ann Arbor, and I really don't understand where all the hate on Minter and the defense is coming from.
You got a thought, Scar? I've got an idea of where that's at.
I think we got the right guy. I think our scheme is it's flexible, it's adjustable. We can stop the Ohio State spread. We can stop the Iowa fullbacks and tight ends, and it takes. And he put our players. You look at the pressure at the end. That was scheme. We're not just lining up guys and say, be a 5-star guy and outrush this tackle. A lot of that was scheme, and that's coaching, man. So I totally disagree with that. And some, the big catch that took him down in there, I think there was some miscommunication there. Sanistrill still hasn't played a ton, and he'll keep getting better. But I think he's got our players in position to win. But, these 5 games I've seen from what he's doing defensively, our guys, he's given our defense a chance to win, I think.
Yeah, and I would look at, you're going to nitpick some things. Even if you're up 20-0, there was a point in the second half where Michigan was getting outgained 130 yards to 62. But I think the other thing is that people look at the schedule and they're not taking it. The people are not, players and coaches. They're not taking it one game at a time. What they're doing is saying, are they really the number 4 team in the country? Are they really going to be able to go through the schedule clean to Columbus and go 11-0? So they're looking at them as a top 4 team in the country. Is that a top 4 defense? Is that a top 5 defense? Is this a defense that can stop Ohio State? Is Michigan for real? Can they be there in the college football playoff? When you put that standard on everything that you see, well, then you could say they're going to have to bring it a little bit more, and they're going to have more. But when as soon as that started happening, that's when you had the 4 sack play or 4 sack series with 2 by Morris and 2 by Oki. It was almost an answer like, where's that pass rush coming from? Where are they going to get it from? Well, number 90 and number 18 answered that consecutively 4 times in a row. So I think all of that plays into it.
Danny, I tell you the way I evaluated defensive coaches. I want to know the guy that can stop all different types of offenses. You can't just be a guy that can stop the spread. You can't just be a guy that can stop, the Wisconsin stuff. You got to be able to stop what everybody does. You got to, we got to stop the Maryland and what Leah did. We got to stop what Michigan State's going to do, and then the Iowa stuff, and everybody's different. And that's the sign of a great defensive coordinator that can adjust his schemes and get his players ready each week for different stuff. And so far, Minter has shown me that. So I am keeping the faith with Coach Minter.
Go ahead, Brock.
Yeah, I'll just say one last thing that I've noticed before I hop off here is this Michigan team, they don't really do much of anything very flashy. They're very fundamentally sound. They wear you down in the trenches. The offensive line did a great job of that in the first half, not so much in the second, but enough work was done there in the first half to wear Iowa down. And they don't really do anything flashy. They wear you down. JJ had that one where he just missed Roman Wilson there in the end zone on that deep ball. I think it was in the second quarter.
Yeah.
But they just wear you down. JJ throws those like 10-yard out routes to the receivers that it's very hard to defend. And they're just a very fundamentally sound and well-coached football team. That's what I've kind of gathered from this Iowa game.
Well, that was a very sound call, Brock. It's great to hear from you. You call anytime on the post game, and thanks for adding your 2 cents and your expertise.
Awesome. I appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, it's
all right,
good.
Brock. Great job, brother. Go Blue.
There he is.
That's right.
Part of the Maize and Blue staff, and he does a great job covering all of the Michigan teams. And you see him, people that are on the Maize and Blue Review, very familiar with his work. All right, Scar, I have, and that's the way it's done. If you're out there, if you're listening, you want to get in, just go ahead, turn your mic on. We'll go to you. We still have an opportunity for you to leave a comment, whether it's a question or just a point that you wanted to make. We'll discuss that. I have that first series as Michigan gets into Iowa territory. We can watch this a little bit and talk about it as it was going on. It was a thing of beauty, for the Wolverines. We played maybe their best play there in the second half. But here's JJ again, rolling out to the right.
Yeah, that was a dime there. That was a hell of a throw and a great catch there. That was, small window, kind of risky. But yeah, that was great. Denny, this first drive, I actually felt really good. I felt really, really good after about 3 or 4 plays when I saw the movement our offensive line was getting on their front, where we hadn't always gotten that kind of movement. See how we're spreading them out though? The first drive, we want to play it in a parking lot. We don't want to have all the tight ends again. And now we're going to run the football. Let's see. Well, here we're throwing it here, but we're high percentage passes, easy passage. We want them to play in space because we don't think they have the kind of athletic ability like in Ohio State. Ohio State, maybe we'll bring it tighter for them. But for Iowa, again, that's coaching. That's what you do. You try to put your players in the best position based on what you think the weaknesses of the opponent. Let's look at the next play. But we were getting movement. That first drive, I liked the spread formations, and I saw the movement we were getting up front. Here's some jet motion. And the movement, there's movement up there. We're moving. Look how we're moving these guys. Zinner's got his guy driven down. And our center was, look at the movement on that front right here. We're double teaming that kid. Our center and our left guard are moving them 6 yards downfield. And we're spreading them. We're making them play in space. That's coaching. And then we're executing with great technique. And, that stuff is all thought out. Here we go, 3rd and 1, first drive. I think we do a nice job with our tight end at the top blocking down. Everybody's blocking down. Movement. Look how we're moving that front. That's not easy to do against Iowa, Denny. That people don't always do that against Iowa because they see this stuff every day in practice against their team. So it's not an easy defensive front to move.
All right. And they get in here pretty quickly. So let's go back to the field. This is the first drive that Michigan had. I thought, the play calling, you looked at that, throwing it, running it up the middle, taking it right down, being able to score, taking the crowd out of it, setting the tone, everything that you're looking for.
Yeah, he just missed them there. That was a great scheme, though. I like that scheme. But we just missed Bell on that. But I really liked what we were doing there.
Bell was acting like he wanted that ball, I don't know, towards the end zone a little bit. Joe Klatt said that was the right throw to the back shoulder. What did you see on this one?
Well, we throw Bubble so much, so they're biting up on Bubble, and he just, they got to get that coordinated a little better. Bell and him weren't on the same page. Something was wrong there, but they'll coach that up. Here we go, 2nd and 10. And now we run the inside ISO. This is what I like about Schoonmaker here. The kid can block in so many different ways. We ran this play a lot against Iowa. We ran it in the championship game where we bring our tight end underneath. I hope they show it again. No, I guess not. Oh. They don't worry about it, Danny, but he leads through there, and they overplayed it, and Donovan Edwards saw another gap, but because they were overplaying the gap that they're trying to run the football in. But Edwards saw it. He saw they were overplaying that, and he's a smart kid, made the adjustment.
I take it off the screen sometimes.
Here's the power reverse. We ran this early in the year. I drew it up on a Thursday, and we just executed again flawlessly. Great execution. Again, this is the stuff when you're good at running your best play, which is power. They know Iowa all week. We got to stop Michigan's power. That's the first play their coaches put in on Monday. You got to stop Michigan's power. So we're going to make it look like power to our right. And now watch Schoonmaker fake like he's blocking, turn around, same thing. Oh, yeah. See, remember we had Alls do that earlier in the year. Remember that, Denny? We drew that play up.
I do. And obviously the technique, because it's the same thing where they pivot around.
Normally, every player's got to be able to run it. You can't just run it with Alls. You got to run with everybody. But that play was executed perfectly. It puts the defense in conflict. They know we run power, so they're over pursuing that. I love it. I love seeing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and now that I've seen it again, when All did it, I thought maybe that was him the reversing field. I would have thought maybe you get better leverage to go back, and you're maybe wasting a little bit of with the turn there. But
that's all designed. It's all designed to deceive those linebackers. Those first 2 or 3 steps, it looks like power. It looks exactly like power. You're pulling the center. You got the backside tight end, and then they're flying out of there, and then we reel it back around, and it's just a well-designed, well-executed, deceptive play.
Yeah. And so when you're making that turn, they're still taking a look at you because they don't know what you're doing there. And then you're able to, and they both, whether it was All or right there, Schoonmaker, making that pivot play and going back the other way, the exact same way. So
let me say this too. If you're a tight end and you're getting recruited to play college football, man, you come to Michigan. You kidding me? We got guys that can block and catch. This is the place you want to go to as a tight end. Another thing, Denny, is the separation by our receivers. Last week I was kind of dogging them a little bit. That there wasn't enough we had some good separation, but a lot of that is because of the zone defenses that Iowa runs. And I think we did a good job of finding some of those holes and getting the separation. Another thing I forgot to mention is we did a good job defending deep passes. Nobody threw the ball over our head. Our secondary coaches did a great job with that. Thanks, Scott, for your thoughts on the analysis on the power. And but that's exactly what it is, man. We run power so well, and then you have to have a bunch of plays off of that to put the defense in conflict. And we got enough passing and in reverses and those plays that put the defense, make it problematic.
Well, let's take a look now and take stock of everything. Michigan, they move to 5-0. They'll continue on the road, and they will head to Indiana. You have a thought on the Hoosiers in back-to-back games?
A couple of weeks back, I thought Indiana would be a traditional, really, really tough Indiana defense. I don't know that he has the athletic athletes he's had in the past. He's a really good coach. He's got a decent quarterback. They got hammered by Cincinnati last week. I don't know how good they are. We got better players than them. We just got to have a great week, and Jim will have them prepared, taking nothing lightly. And if we can get that Indiana game, then we got Penn State at home, and then we get the break. But yeah, this is a Big Ten football game. We got to play smart, secure the football like we've been doing, and we have better players in Indiana, and so we should be in good shape.
Yeah, and you got you've got Michigan along the way here. I don't think JJ McCarthy is a finished product, and I think there were some people that got tired of hearing about, well, he's got just this ceiling, this outstanding ceiling. But you've got games and every snap and everything that he's going to go through, that this trajectory can keep going up. And, we don't know where it's going to end, but he's got those tools. I mean, when you watch him throw the ball and you're watching him operate and he's just at the controls here, it makes me feel like watching Michigan today. There were at times like when, and it's not just JJ, he's got to have a line, but you've got Corum and Donovan Edwards, both of these guys. I mean, these guys, these are blue chip players. These are two of the best running backs in the country. Corum is, I know that for a lot of people nationally, even though he was, considered a top 5 running back heading into this year, you throw up 243 yards like he did, that's going to be eye popping. But Donovan Edwards is a special running back. So Michigan's got some special players on offense, and with McCarthy here, with the receivers and being able to spread it out, being able to get out there and run in game time and going on the road, invaluable for JJ for him to play his best football. And to be honest, he doesn't have to play his best football. He didn't have to today. He didn't have to last week. He doesn't have to really next week, although you'd like him to get close to that. But after that, it's Penn State. By the 2 weeks from now, today's the 1st, 10-15, 2 weeks from now, you would like JJ to get pretty close to playing his best football, because that's going to be a game that's going to be, it looks like right now, is going to be a tough one at the Big House. But all of that is positive with him out there and what you saw today. And individually, the defense, like we talked about, there were some times there that it looked like a hairy situation, but individually, some of these players, when we started naming them, it is, I think you should be encouraged if you're a Michigan fan about this team being able to defend its Big Ten title.
Heck yeah, this is a great win, man. So many teams have gone in there and lost, and I know what it is to play there. It's tough, and JJ is going to keep getting better. With him in the game, when we got the RPO quarterback keep play in, it is an every down threat for the defense. Believe me, that helps our run game. We didn't run it much today. We only ran it a few times, but it helps your inside run, because the edge has to always honor it. So they're going to be slower to fold underneath and help on some of that inside run. The one thing with JJ, I want him getting out of bounds. He got out of bounds today. Just run out of bounds, man. You're too valuable. Don't take any more shots. We want everybody. We want him healthy. He's too good, too valuable.
Yeah, well, I thought that he took a big step forward. Last week, like I said, I thought the game, and I don't know, like it's just my opinion. Like it looked like it was going a little bit fast for him, and he is somebody that is supremely talented. And a part about having a quarterback like McCarthy back there is when the play breaks down, that he can improvise. He does buy some time. He can bring this escapability. Like, you see guys in the NFL do it, and Patrick Mahomes is one of them. And sometimes when he throws, and he even threw that one side arms in the first half there, the Schoonmaker a little bit behind him. I don't know about ill-advised. It just wasn't a perfect pass, but that reminded me of Patrick Mahomes. But if he wants to emulate somebody, that's who I would like to see him when he's running the ball, because Mahomes, yeah, he buys himself time and he's throwing off schedule and off platform and all these things. But when he takes off, he's usually sliding down. He's usually ducking out of bounds. But I think McCarthy, I've heard him talk about, his love and his fondness for hockey. And, in hockey, they like the physicality. I think he sees some of these guys on Sunday, and 2 guys that are going to be going head to head tomorrow, and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. Those guys don't go down. Those guys are looking to, Allen's jumping up in the air, lowering his shoulder. Lamar Jackson, I mean, there's nobody that's really been ever like Lamar Jackson, but man, he runs, between the tackles, and he's finishing off his runs and everything else. So I don't know, McCarthy, wherever he fits in there, I know when they're coaching him, I'm sure when he looked at those 2 plays when he was running around last week, they said, look, you just got to be able to live for another play or get rid of it there, even though we appreciate that escapability. But that's all something every game that they will look at. They've got something. You want to be able to mold that and get the best out of it, because you know what? He is somebody. We saw it in his first game against Northern Illinois when he threw the ball all the way. Western, where he threw the ball all the way across the field. And then, next thing you know, the guy was walking in for a 69-yard touchdown. I mean, he's supremely talented. Being able to harness all that in, protect the football. That's an ongoing process, Scar, as you've been saying.
Yeah, he's just he's not. I don't know. What's he? Maybe 200 pounds. I don't know what he weighs. Josh,
200 pounds, 6'3", 200. I think he's listed.
I just if I'm coaching that team, he's not taking any hits that we don't need, and we don't need it, man. He's too valuable. And I just want to emphasize again for a lot of our fans that that maybe love the Ohio State offense, and they spread every darn down, and you love all those great receivers and that. But a game like this is why a Michigan defense can really make an easy adjustment to slowing down this type of an offense. Because it gets back to our overall program philosophy. Do things that can help your defense win all 12 games on your schedule, and it really played out today.
Scar, before we leave, I just want to run through. I see people talking about some of the other games. If you want to say anything to them, I just want to check and see if everybody was saying what they were saying is correct. You get the second quarter getting ready to get underway at Maryland. The Terps are up on the Spartans 14-7. In the first quarter, with just over a minute to play, you have Ohio State in a dogfight, as somebody mentioned, with Rutgers 14-7. They're in the second quarter. Penn State up only on Northwestern by a 7-0 score. Earlier today, I think 2 surprises, at least to myself, because they were both on the road. Purdue went up and rode the boat to Minnesota and doubled them up 20-10. Big upset there.
Danny, Big Ten football, baby. Big Ten football. You got to play every week. These guys are on scholarship, man. They're all on scholarship. These are good coaches. They're gonna. You got to play every week. This is what Coach Harbaugh does, man. He gets his team ready to play every week. That's what I love about him. We haven't had. You can say what you want about him, maybe not being all that good in some of those big games in the past, but we are ready to play every week, and he'll have his team ready to play at Indiana. There ain't gonna be no damn upset at Indiana. You screw around with people. They got guys on scholarship. They got strength coaches too, Danny. They got training tables too, man.
Michigan's, everybody does this. You look at a schedule, say you think this game's going to be tough. That game, a lot of people were looking towards Nebraska and Michigan's second from last home game during the summer, saying, hey, that one's going to be a tough one with Scott Frost. I was seeing the same thing. But the last home game of the year, do you know who that's against, Scar?
Yeah, I know it. I told you they're going to be one of the most improved teams. Didn't I tell you at the beginning of the year?
Illinois.
Illinois. I told you. I said, you watch. I saw him in the spring. I said, Brett Bielema's a coach, man. That guy knows he's built a physical offense and a physical deep. They just went in and beat Wisconsin, right?
They went into Brett Bielema's old stopping grounds, Wisconsin, and they didn't just beat Wisconsin at Camp Ramble. They smacked them upside the head, 34-10.
Okay.
The final. How about that from Brett Bielema?
A guy can coach, man, and that's not going to be no lamb chop. We got to deal with them the week before we play the Buckeyes. So, you got to play every week, man.
All right, well, let's hear a final thought from Jim Scarcelli, the former Wolverine, on Michigan's victory today. They were up 13-0 at the half, and they win it 27-14.
Just an awesome performance by our coaches in preparation and scheme. Our players executed. Few mistakes that we will continue to clean up on. A great job securing the football. We went into a hostile environment that will prepare us for when we got to go down to play the Buckeyes in a hostile environment. Our quarterback keeps getting better. We are a fired up team, and we are confident, but we will respect everybody on our schedule. And I'm just fired up, Denny.
Yeah, and for me, Michigan came out, that first drive set the tone for everything. It was such a well designed all the way through, getting everybody involved, and like an A+ type drive. And you see that as a Michigan fan, and then you see them get up 13-0, and then they go up 20-0, and you're thinking, yeah, why don't you just go out there and beat them 40-50-0? That'll be a big statement for everyone. And that didn't happen, but overall, when you take a step back to see the defense when it counted and when you needed them, you said, hey, where's that pass rush? You had Mike Morris once, you had Mike Morris twice, you had Yabioki once, you had Yabioki twice there. And so they flashed a little bit something there. I think overall, very encouraging. JJ McCarthy took a step forward. Everything's looking real good for Michigan football right now, and they get the win on the road, 27-14. So it's all feeling pretty good. Scar, you've got your Victor's Club shirt on. Tell me about that.
Danny, this is back in the day. Every week the players got graded. If you graded, I think it was 75% or higher, you got to what we call Victor's Club, and you got to wear this jersey in practice all week. So it was kind of a prestigious thing. You had to play a certain amount of plays, and you had to grade out at a certain level. And then if you had, I think it was 8 games out of 11, then you've been Victor's Club for the whole year. So it was something that everybody strived for. And this was one of the jerseys that we got to wear at practice. Somehow this jersey just happened to make it home with me and never made it into the bin. But I just thought I'd break it out for the big Michigan victory, because there's a lot of guys that I think Jim still does the Victor's Club. Last time I was in the locker room, I think I seen it on the wall there that they do have the same type of deal.
Well, I think you better watch yourself. You might get a call or an email from John Falk this week.
Yeah. Well, he hasn't found me in 30 years, so I think I'm good.
You think you're good? Okay, yeah, you are good, Scar. You did a great job. You join us during the week. You get some selected plays. You talk about them. I've had a fun time, and it's been educational watching you diagram the plays. So we look forward to that whenever you join us coming up this next week. And on to the Hoosiers.
All right, Danny, go blue.
There he is, Jim Scarcelli. I'm Dennis Fithian. Final again, 27-14. Maize and Blue review, the Michigan football postgame live. We're here after every Michigan football and basketball game. Don't forget, weekdays at 1 o'clock, there's a live show. Good afternoon, Michigan football. So that's all going for you. Thanks for listening on Twitter Spaces.